Hi guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray, and what a juicy episode I have today with two iconic guests from the world of music. I'm going to tell you more right after this. I'm back, and this show is brought to you by West Coast London. What's that? It's a clothing line. Whose clothing line? My clothing line. You guys know I'm an artist as well as an entertainer. Come on. It's episode 25, a silver jubilee, a quadricentennial episode. That sounded way too hyper, but I am wearing a sash. My point is, you must have learned some stuff about me by now, right? Stand-up comedy. Crazy experience in 2012 left me talking about quantum physics and the nature of reality, and I paint a lot of stuff, right? Which is why in 2013 I launched my own line of hand-painted clothing in Covent Garden, London, and it now has fans around the world, and I'm super proud of that. The current collection is inspired by fandom, and more collections are in the pipeline, so go to westcoastlondon.com and enter coupon code ESCAPE for 10% off your order. And everything is painted by me. And you know how quantum physics works. Once something is connected, it's connected forever. So when you get that beanie, I'm in that beanie. So be nice. And I like going to Taco Bell. Okay, enough of this. It's time for today's guests. You have heard these guys. The world has heard these guys when in 1992, the planet sung along to the instantly infectious lyrics of I'm Too Sexy, carving instant stardom into the lives of Richard and Fred Fairbrass, two brothers from East Grinstead, England, who went on to have numerous hits in the UK, like Don't Talk, Just Kiss, Deeply Dippy, and now they have a brand new album in the works and a brand new platform upon which it will be available. It's called pledgemusic.com, not to be confused with pledge.com, which is about a spray that cleans furniture and brings wood to a fine shine. Not that I went to the wrong site, but it is a true multi-surface spray and can be used throughout the whole house, but not that site. It's pledgemusic.com. And if you haven't heard of it, it's awesome. Like Kickstarter, but for music. And it's not just for newbies. There are big stars making great music and connecting directly with their fans, people just like you, thanks to pledgemusic.com. Stars like Macy Gray, Marillion, Erasure, Echo and the Bunnyman, Gary Newman, and my guest today, Right Said Fred. We're going to hear all about their project, their campaign, and a whole lot more. As always, we dive right into their recording session in Clapham, London, where Fred and Richard kindly took time out to escape with me. A heads up, you might hear some sniffles from Fred, who's apparently allergic to England. And as a special treat, here is an exclusive clip just for you guys and me, for us. It's a rough mix, not the final mix, from one of their brand new tracks called Love Under Construction. We'll have more music later, I promise, but right now it's Fred and Richard Fairbrass, better known as Right Said Fred.
Some people say love is blind, like star-crossed lovers on a building side. Whoa, whoa, love under construction.
A couple of days, I get this congestion, and I can't do anything about it.
Wow. It just comes upon arrival in England.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Comedy is my eternal therapy.
Yeah, the same with us. We're playing. We're actually quite grumpy and serious, and we use music to cheer ourselves up.
Oh, well, this is, exactly
That's what we
like
do.
me in comedy.
Yeah,
exactly.
We complain about everything. Everything. Almost not when we're working we don't, but in airports or restaurants, or he's slightly worse than I am, I think, but I find the world quite fucked up.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I find people's naivety with regards to where they get their information from just breathtaking. They will believe what the 6 o'clock news says. They believe it. Not that news.
Okay.
I watch different news because I think it's good to try and do that. But I listen to a lot of independent media, like guys like Scott Horton, Richie Allen, Democracy Now!, James Corbett, those sort of independent,
Excellent.
what's referred to as alternative media. It's not
Yeah.
alternative, it's just independent.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I do that. And I do also try and, read the Sun or something, because I think it's just try and get a perspective. Because somewhere in the middle
Is the
is the truth.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, sure. And that's so, when we... I'm more of a conspiracy theorist than Richard is, but we both are extremely... We get it from our dad. Our dad did not like authority.
Okay.
He found them... He didn't like the church. He didn't like politicians that much. Doctors he sort of trusted, but he thought, generally speaking, they were a right bunch of herberts and needed to be approached with caution.
Oh,
Killed? Did you
killed.
say?
Yeah.
So your dad was basically ahead of his time.
Well,
to
we're
think
talking
this way.
Yeah, 'cause we're doing an autobiography, so we've been chatting with the sort of ghostwriter lady, and so when you start talking about things, you suddenly realise what you think. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you just store it up.
Yeah.
And when we look back at our dad, we were raised through the 60s, and our dad used to do the washing up, hoovering. We used to get alternative medication like cod liver oil and stuff like this, which was alternative at the time. Our dad would always kiss us when we saw him, never handshakes like all our friends.
Or hugs.
Or hugs, yeah.
No tongues.
No tongue.
Right.
No,
Good.
we weren't from Arkansas.
No.
You haven't had that kind of childhood.
Not yet.
Not that kind
not
of
that
childhood.
kind of, no. So it was, that was pretty. He was a printer. Worked in London his whole life. Lived outside in the what they call dormitory towns, where you just go to sleep, basically. But looking back, he was quite progressive for his generation. I didn't realise it at the time, but he was. He was quite very old school in some ways. The way he viewed women.
Yeah.
When Mum got a part-time job, it quite upset him because he felt, well, aren't I providing enough?
Right.
As opposed to, it's good, get out of the house.
Right.
Yeah.
So a little old school that way. I think sexuality probably a bit old school. I think the gay thing would have freaked him out, just to come to terms with it a little bit. But other than that, he was quite progressive.
Yeah.
Certainly in terms of how he saw the world.
How healthy for you to
It
have
was.
a parent like that.
Yeah.
We were lucky, I think.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were very lucky. Yeah.
Mum and Dad were both pretty solid.
Yeah, Mum's quite quirky, and Dad was more straight-laced. But they both thought for their generation, they both thought quite fresh.
Yeah.
I think looking
Yeah,
back.
absolutely. I mean, there are people now who still are not that progressive.
No, that's true.
Who will still mock cod liver
Yeah,
oil
yeah,
and
yeah.
that
Yeah, they
kind
will,
of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I was going to say, you guys look fantastically healthy. And it was one of the things I was going to ask you about is what you do for your health. You look really well.
We do a lot of crystal meth.
Don't mainline anymore.
No, we don't mainline anymore. But crystal meth is a little known health drug.
Yeah. Are we recording, by the way? We sort of-
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
started
up, yeah.
recording.
No,
but
we're careful is all.
And we're lucky.
And we're lucky.
Yeah, because Mum's got Alzheimer's and she's 92, but
Strong as an ox, really.
when she's on good form, you wouldn't think for a minute she's 92. You'd think she's probably late 70s, 80. Wow. And very feisty, lots of energy. But it's the Alzheimer's that's taken its toll. So she's gone moderate. She's sort of moderate to advanced now. She knows who we are, but she needs reminding.
He's here.
Hey,
Hey, coffee.
green tea.
Thank you. Whoa,
Nice one,
thank
Jay.
you.
Appreciate that. Thank you
very
Thank you
kind.
very much.
I'll shut the door after you, actually.
We've got new mugs being made, and it says "Swallow," said Fred.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, we thought that was quite funny.
And I think we're quite
easily
lucky
pleased.
because we've both been quite. When the band took off, we drank a lot. We did drugs. We had lots of late nights. We did lots of very, very long days for months on end. I think some of it is luck, but also through our 20s, for no reason, through our 20s, we didn't really drink.
We were at home. So it wasn't like we left home when we were 16 and got into smoking pot. And
We were skint musicians.
we were skint musicians,
Used to,
so
used to go back and crash at Mum and Dad's.
yeah, so we used to live at home. And of course, when you live at home, your behaviour is tempered by
Yeah.
the fact of being at home.
Right.
So we didn't get drunk, and I didn't start smoking until I was 30. I don't know, 32 or something.
That's a terrible decision.
I know, yeah. And I was well, what
The one of many we've
The
made.
reason I started smoking was because smoking is like I personally cannot stand being told what to do by anybody. So when politicians tell me I can't smoke, I want to smoke. I remember having my first silk cut in a pub because the guy I was going out with at the time, we were together for years. He smoked, and so I thought, it was in a pub, and so I had my first silk cut. And I got so stoned on the first cigarette, absolutely stoned. And of course, what you think is the second cigarette will do the same, but of course it doesn't. It's never the same. But by that time, it's too late. You're addicted to nicotine. Although I have to say, I read in the paper yesterday that cheese is more addictive than nicotine.
Really?
Yes.
I love cheese.
Well, there you go.
You can't freebase it,
you
though.
can't freebase it or inject
I've tried that.
I've snorted it. Come on.
But I think we're just careful. We didn't when we were living at home. We, as I say, we didn't drink, we didn't do drugs, we didn't, and we didn't really start misbehaving until our 30s when we left home and the band started playing.
The band broke late. We were both in our early 30s when the band broke.
Yeah.
And we'd been session players before that. I'd played guitar with Bob Dylan, and we both worked with Mick Jagger. Rich played bass with David Bowie. So we've done some quite high-profile stuff, but you're only ever a hired hand. When the tour's over, when the show's over, when the video's over, I don't get... Bob doesn't ring me up at 6:30 at night. Fancy going out for pizza?
No.
Fred.
No.
They don't. You're just a hired hand. You're in for the gig and you're gone. So it soon dawned upon us that, first of all, we wanted to do our own stuff. And also we love making painfully hooky pop music. We don't actually listen to a lot of it. We don't listen to other people's very much. We tend to listen to slightly more... What's the word I'm looking for?
Alternative, really.
Yeah, alternative, and also quite a lot of old stuff as well, although I'd listen to a lot of dance music. But
What sort of old stuff? Like Sinatra old? Or?
Sinatra, we've just been playing some Glenn Miller.
Fantastic.
And then I like the whole folk movement through guys like Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, and that sort of early almost New York Village folk movement from almost beatnik, I suppose. The pop music we got into was sort of when it really clicked was early 70s, because the glam movement I thought was just fantastic. When I first saw David Bowie and T-Rex,
Gary Glitter.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Glitter, you can't talk about him now because he's a paedophile, or being convicted of being a paedophile. And what's very sad about that, apart from in terms of the music, I'm not going to comment on his private life because we all know that's quite fucked up. But what's happened is some very good music's now been consigned to the vault because you're not allowed to play it.
Right.
They still play Wagner. He was an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of nonsense talked about this, because I agree with Freddie. The music's got nothing to do with it. If it's good music, you play it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who made it. Doesn't matter how it was made. That's it. I think.
I think there's similar things happening with comedy videos of someone like Freddie Starr.
Yes.
Now. I interviewed Des O'Connor, and it was very much like, we better not talk about him.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Said, and Des was pretty open, like, I don't want to talk about this because it's awful what's coming out.
Yes, it is. And I think what I find, just from a justice point of view, if you take David Lee Travis, he had lots of people pointing the finger saying, you did this and you did that. They stayed anonymous. He is dragged through the courts, dragged through the media. Then he's found innocent.
By which time it's too late.
Having spent all his money
Defending
himself against gossip. And I think because of the severity of Jimmy Savile, and clearly what a miserable waste of skin he proved to be, I think that's left a mark on this huge Treat investigation that people find it very hard to differentiate between this guy did this and this guy. There's a huge difference between what these different people did.
Right.
Also, what's interesting is Westminster is being left well alone, when in fact there's clearly some very unpleasant goings on that have been for years through politicians and sort of. I don't know about the royal family, but certainly in what you might term as the hierarchy of social
upper
circles, there's been some very unpleasant stuff going on, and sometimes I wonder if the DLTs of this world have been thrown to the wolves to take the heat off these people.
Well, it is a big distraction, isn't it? Everyone that gets pinpointed by the media, then we're occupied.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. I think there's
Yeah.
Shiny thing.
Yeah, there's a bit of fishing. There's a bit of fishing going on. I think.
It's been so shocking because I've been away for so long. I literally left when I was a kid watching Rolf Harris.
Right.
And now it's like Rolf Harris is in prison, and he's an old man, basically.
He is, 80-something.
Yeah. I mean, it really kind of does my head in.
Yeah,
the fact
it's
that
very odd.
something can come so late in the game and still be provable.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is. I wouldn't want to comment on whether people are innocent or guilty. I have no idea. But it does get a bit weird when the offences that you're accused of committing are 30 or 40 years old in some cases. People's memories are not reliable.
I don't know what I did yesterday.
You know what I mean? I think this whole thing strikes me as being, it's like a snowball. It's once it's got going, it's very hard to stop. There's no doubt about it. There are some people, like several Fred's already mentioned, who should have been put away a long time ago and tackled a long time ago. But there are other people who I think have been dragged through a miserable experience, based like the guy from Coronation Street. Whose name I can't remember.
Barlow.
Yeah, Ken Barlow.
Yeah.
Found innocent.
Yeah.
But imagine what that was like for him.
Right.
While the people that were accusing him, as Fred says, just remained in the shadows, and we have no idea who they are.
Yeah,
Right.
I find that quite odd. You blame somebody, but you get all the protection.
Yeah.
I find that mentality quite strange.
And there is also, I know somebody else who I shan't mention who's going through it at the moment, and they are, to all intents and purposes, guilty as far as their employer is concerned, as far as their everything else is concerned, even prior to the trial.
Yeah.
The idea that you're innocent until proven guilty does not apply.
Wow.
In the same way that doesn't apply when you go through security at the airport. You're guilty. Prove you're
Right.
innocent.
Wow.
It's the absolute inversion of everything we understand.
I mean,
right.
I really see the both sides, because it's wonderful for the victims, who were raped by Jimmy
Yeah.
Savile, to
Yeah.
now feel some justice, that they've been heard.
Absolutely.
And then
Totally
it's
agree.
equally tragic for innocent people to
Yes,
be
it is.
accused of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Like,
It is,
it
yeah.
really is a double-edged sword.
It is.
It is, yeah. It is
There
very, very
I don't know what the, with an relatively open press, the idea of keeping a charge or even questioning secret would be very, very difficult. So if you wanted to go down the road of saying in Cliff Richard's case, whilst he's being questioned, we shouldn't even know about it. If you know what I mean, that should be completely under the
Yeah.
radar until
Yes,
it goes
charged.
until
Yeah.
it goes to court. Once it goes to court,
Yeah.
he's there. The people that are accusing him are there, and we all know who they are. And then the jury can make up their mind. But the problem is keeping that quiet would be in an relatively open society.
And also
would be
because then you
pretty
can.
difficult.
Some people, it's like when you get a serial killer on the loose. The amount of people that go to the police station saying that they're him.
Right.
They have this weird mindset. Well, maybe there's a whole bunch of people out there who just like to accuse people of doing things. Maybe they want to be in that. Maybe they're that
They like the
same.
attention, yeah.
Maybe that same warped mentality
course.
is being utilised there. I mean, I don't know. And I'm not trying to belittle what people have been through. I just
Right.
think we need to be open-minded
Yes.
because people are weird.
Yeah, I think you've got to always second guess everything that
Yeah.
little bit and
you
fine
have.
tune your own gut
Yeah, you have,
to
yeah.
know your own truth barometer.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
And when it's activated, you know.
Yeah, yes, exactly. There's also, I think, there's been a bit of a sea change in the UK at a police level. 20 or 30 years ago, the inclination was to not believe people. That, you assumed they were lying. You assumed that they were asking for it. You assumed all sorts of stuff. And rarely were these cases followed up. I think that the culture around that has now changed. And I think the police, from what I can tell, are much better at taking it seriously and not being quite so dismissive of girls or boys even who come in.
Right.
And just because they're on the wrong side, born on the wrong side of the tracks, or the single kids from a single family or a problem family or whatever it happens to be, they don't automatically judge that person. They take on face value what they're saying.
Right.
But in Rotherham, I know that the girls that were complaining of being abused by this gang went to the police station, and because the girls were very often 15 and a bit, uncontrollable and all over the place, the police kind of made up their mind, well, she probably had it coming kind of thing.
Well, there's that short skirt she's
Yeah.
asking
She's
for
asking for it.
mentality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, that just
But you have that in all sorts of, the judge said it the other day. Judge
Wow.
said exactly the same thing the other day.
Yeah, I mean, but there's women that think that as well about other women.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure some of
Well,
them.
particularly if they're particularly religious.
Yeah.
they would
Right.
think that.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about religion because I get upset. So
Well, you ran for mayor of London.
No,
right?
I was thought about it.
Oh, you thought about it.
I thought about it.
I think he was pre-approached.
I was approached, and then I thought I can't. I love politics. I absolutely love it, and the referendum debate. I would be a hopeless politician because I would absolutely. I couldn't stand to be in the presence of people who disagreed. I couldn't stand it. It would drive me insane. I would have to. Honestly, I'm not interested in what they think. I'm right and you're wrong. That's sod off.
Sort of Berlusconi.
Sort of Berlusconi approach. I'm not really. I just. I mean, to you referendum. I hear these guys going on about pro-Europe, and all they ever talk about, I guarantee it, throughout this whole thing, is the referendum is now not until 2017. You will not hear a pro-European support for anything other than trade, jobs, and money. That'll be it. They will never talk about democracy. They will never talk about accountability, transparency. They will never talk about that. Control, sovereignty, forget it. They only talk about trade. And so when it's hardly surprising that the CBI is pro-Europe because it's pro-trade, it doesn't care about people. Doesn't care about people. And that's what the European debate is going to be about. It's going to be about accountability and democracy versus big business. That's what it's going to be about. And I really hope big business takes a second place.
Isn't it frustrating for you, though, to not be in politics, given that you're so passionate about it?
No, because I think I'd be dead if I was. I think I'd find the strain of it, the stress of it. Why I think Cameron is good, and this is not the same as agreeing with him, but why I think he's a good politician is because I think he's not a gut politician. I think he's a manoeuvrer, and I think he intellectualises politics. I think if you're a gut politician, it kills you because it's visceral. It takes control of you. He approaches it in a much more, rather like a surgeon, I think. And I think he probably goes to bed and sleeps really well.
I think he's a skillful. I don't agree with him at all. I don't like his politics, but I think he's skillful. I think he's a manoeuvrer and plays the game, and go away. and I think Blair was the same. He was an effective politician, a vile human being, war criminal. But I think
can't say that of Cameron though.
What?
He's not yet.
No, he's not. No. But you could say that about Obama on the bombing of the Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan. You could easily say that the Obama administration is now guilty of war crimes.
Well, I think what goes on in dark ops, as they say, we have no idea. You know, this English guy that's been released from Guantanamo 13 years later. You know, you know, and it's. You know, I understand what they had an American guy on talking about. There's a misunderstanding when people. Guantanamo is not a jail. That's how it's not technically a jail.
It's very not convenient for them to say that.
Yeah, no, but hold on. There may be a legal difference here, which I'm not aware of. But what he implied was that if you imagine that Guantanamo is a place where you put people who have committed a theft, you misunderstand the purpose of the jail. In the same way that all the prisoners that were put in prisoner of war camps in the Second World War did not have a trial. They were prisoners of war. It's a different thing. And if you assume that this is a war, it's a different thing. Well, that's how they.
Well, they call it a war when it suits them. They call it a conflict when it doesn't suit them. I mean, it really is.
Well, using the word war was a mistake in the first place because it changes the legalistic demands upon it. But I think. I used to my whole thing was, why isn't there a trial? Why hasn't he been charged? Why isn't there, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I thought. And then I heard this guy and I thought, well, actually, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't fully understand the legal difference between these two.
But this guy's not taking a humanitarian stance, is he?
Oh no!
You can't just lock people up.
So who is the person who's been released?
Well, Shaka
Aimer.
And what was he supposed to have done?
Well, he's supposed to have been involved with terrorist activities. I don't know if it was Afghanistan or with Al-Qaeda or whatever. But he claims he was an aid worker going over there with his family. He was then arrested. His wife was released or something some weeks later, but he was arrested and transferred eventually to Guantanamo and held there without trial and without charge, and which I used to think was completely. Why are you doing that? This is ridiculous. It's. And then I had this politician. He wasn't a politician. Actually, he was a lawyer. He was saying you have to understand the difference between the basis upon which he was taken and the basis upon which you arrest somebody on the street for theft. Those are two different things.
Also, but then if you go down that road, Guantanamo is on somebody else's territory.
Well, I've never understood that. It's in Cuba.
It's in Cuba.
I've never quite understood that. Why do Cubans put up with it?
How does that work?
Yeah.
And how does that...
And also, I don't know. That was there even before the recent rapprochement between America and Cuba.
Yeah, it was.
So there was a time when Guantanamo was there, but Cuba was a country that couldn't stand America. But they had on their territory
Guantanamo.
Guantanamo.
I don't get that.
I don't
Yeah,
get that.
yeah.
It's a bit like the Chinese or whoever having a huge jail in Suffolk.
Yeah.
So Guantanamo isn't one of those strange little territories of the US?
Well, it
I
might.
think the
maybe-
land is owned by Cuba. I think it is. It's on Cuban soil.
Well, it depends how it might be like an embassy, where you have a German embassy in the UK, but that is considered German land, that's Germany.
Because there are territories, aren't there? There's Guam and
yes, there is.
these
Yeah.
places that you don't think are
Yeah.
American, but they actually are.
That's
American.
why we
that's
can't
true.
go into the Ecuadorian embassy and arrest
Wiki guy.
the wiki guy.
yeah,
Julian
Assange. Julian Assange.
Yeah.
The reason we can't go in there is because that's Ecuadorian territory.
Mm.
And that maybe that's the same with Guantanamo, is what I'm saying. Maybe that's the legalistic thing.
Well, it's funny because you just said, Fred, at the beginning how you're more conspiracy.
My brother, yeah.
Yeah,
I am,
and
yes.
so I've got to ask you from a UK standpoint, because I've been in America all these terms, what's your take on 9/11?
My take on 9/11
Walt Disney did it.
is I have no idea who did it. I think it was the official report. I think is ridiculous. I think the idea that you attack Iraq and Afghanistan based on what happened at 9/11, when I think it was 9 of the 14, or no, maybe more, 10 of the 14 suicide bombers were Saudi. So how does that mesh? I find the whole thing very peculiar. When you watch the footage, when you see some of some of it's gone offline now, but there's a lot of footage from first responders, and they were all talking about that it was a bomb. It was bomb damage. The early Fox News said it was a military plane. I think it was a military plane or unmarked plane that hit the building. And it's now got very complicated because there's so many untold truths. But listening to people who were there, like the guy, I think his name was William Rodriguez, who was the janitor. And you listen to his account of what happened, and he'd been working at this building, I think, for 20 plus years. He was very familiar with the two towers, and he's not an idiot. And I think the idea that this man would just decide to ruin his whole life by lying is quite ridiculous. He's decided to tell the truth,
Right.
and that sadly has ruined his life, but not so much now. But I think what happened with Building 7, I think the idea that these are the only buildings in history to actually fall down through fire, metal structures fall down through fire. There's so many inconsistencies, and there's so many very well-read and expert people who think we've all been conned. I can't for a minute believe the official story. That said, I don't have any insight that anybody else does, and I don't know who's responsible. But there's so many weird things that went on around it. Some of the trading activity, some of the insurance activity leading up to the attack, some of the conversations that went on at the Pentagon. Rumsfeld goes missing for 4 hours.
Not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole thing was very odd. And
Not enough.
Bush with the
gone missing
book,
for 4 or 5
when he
years.
was reading the goat, this little story, reading the goat storybook to the kids. I mean, if you didn't know this was going to happen, and someone walked in and said 2 planes have hit the North and South Towers, you would put your book down, you'd get up and say, "I'm really sorry, we've got."
It might have been his favourite, though.
I think it was learning to read. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I find the whole thing very weird, and then it goes back and back. You look at George Bush Senior, and then look at the dad. Prescott. He ran a bank for the Nazis, and I think sadly other people's bad news is the few's good news. If you know what I mean. Like a lot of people, when negative things happen, there's a few people where that negative turns into positive. Lots of people made money out of the Second World War, as they did the First World War, and every negative situation, somebody benefits.
The ultra 1%.
Yeah, they are the 1%.
Yeah, the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah,
the 1% of the 1%.
And I do believe in this New World Order, secret society, Bilderberg thing. I think there are conversations that go on beyond governments that we have no notion of.
I have to do a shout out for Netflix, because I've got to say, when the media is so clearly controlled
It is,
by
yes.
corporations
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
finances. Netflix has got some wicked documentaries
hasn't it?
out
Yeah,
right
it's
now,
got some
which literally I love documentaries because, I feel you're getting
documentaries.
somebody's passionate quest for some truth.
Yeah,
Yes, you are,
And
yes.
they've dedicated their life to this, and so it's worth sort of
Yeah,
listening.
it is, yeah.
And I watched Leonardo Dicaprio attached his name to one called Cowspiracy.
Oh, okay.
And
I've seen it on my Netflix, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's fantastic, and it's such an eye-opener, and you think, is this going to be about all the animal cruelty? And it's actually not. It's about climate change.
Oh, okay.
And this big lie that all of the cars and trucks and fumes, fossil fuels added together do not damage the environment as much as the raising of livestock.
Right, yes. Yes.
And it's a
true.
brilliant
Yeah.
documentary,
Yes.
and you almost think, because they talk about how activists get killed.
Yes.
And I'm like, hats off to Leonardo
Yeah, yeah.
DiCaprio
Yes, yeah.
for putting his name to this
Yeah.
and exec producing this recent cut. And also hats off to Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do some
Really
good stuff.
free to put
Yeah.
on whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a very good thing about hacktivism and the Stuxnet virus. And that's a very good documentary
Oh, I'll
on
have to
there.
check
Yeah,
that
that's
out.
very good. And then I agree with it. I think the climate change, like the minute I hear the governments want to tax me on something because it's bad, and it's all our fault, I immediately get suspicious. And I don't doubt for a minute, the cleaner we all live, the better the planet will benefit. There's no question about that. But the trouble is that there's too many people making money from telling you this is happening, you need to do this. It's like with airport security. It's the same, these scanners, suddenly these £100,000 scanners that go in. No one's discussing the radiation emissions. These things were banned 4 years ago and suddenly they're all in our airports. There's a negativity that people like to try and avoid. If you dare mention, climate change, global warming, if you want to discuss it, you must be a non-believer and you must be a really bad person. And same if you try and discuss child abuse or drugs, and people like to take a default position, and they don't think there are grey areas. There are grey areas. There's grey areas in everything, and I think the climate change is definitely one. And you have to also, when you hear scientists talk, go behind them. Who's sponsoring those people?
Right.
Who's sponsoring those reports? I think it's important to just not to. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not saying it is, but don't just watch Sky or Fox and think, oh, that's what's going on today, because that's their view. They're just putting out news that suits their agenda, but sort of represents them to a degree, if you know what I mean.
You will love, if you haven't seen it already, The Internet's Own Boy. Have you seen that documentary? I think it's relatively new. It's on Netflix now, about a guy named Aaron Swartz, who
I
was a
saw that.
little kid genius.
I've seen it.
And he
Killed himself, didn't he?
he's supposedly killed himself,
supposedly,
and
yeah.
he's all... I mean, he probably did from the pressure.
Right.
But basically, he's very integral in the fact that we still have open internet.
Oh, okay.
And that it didn't get controlled. Part of SOPA.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was a real key figure in rallying the support.
Oh.
And he actually did something that you would think is impossible. He managed to reverse the decision that US Congress had made in the Senate from saying, yeah, we should pass SOPA. With all the work he did online, he
Yeah.
managed to get them to change
Really?
their mind.
Right.
But then he was accused by the government of so many crimes.
Well, the FBI were on his back.
They were
Yeah.
tremendously on him, and
Yeah.
it's pretty tragic, but a brilliant documentary.
Okay, well, it's the
Yeah,
same.
I've seen
Gary Webb, the journalist who broke the story of CIA importing cocaine into parts of California, parts of LA, and importing crack cocaine, I should say, to sponsor the Sandinista rebels. So they were selling crack cocaine, and the money was going back to support the rebels. And Gary Webb broke the story. And basically, he then got rubbished by the press. And although the story broke big, basically the system got on top of him and made him out to be a liar. Then, years later, the whole thing was basically, people realised that Gary Webb was telling the truth. The CIA, the FBI have admitted now that he was telling the truth, and that they did have undercover agents bringing crack cocaine in to parts of LA. But he was found dead with 2 bullets in his head, and apparently it's suicide. Yeah, he shot himself twice. Yeah, that's quite clever, isn't it? You shoot yourself once, I'll shoot myself again.
Goodness
Yeah, it was.
me.
And I find all this stuff really interesting. And I think it's the same thing. That the dark forces, the dark ops. I think a lot of governments haven't got a clue what's going on. I think the security forces, the industrial military complex moves outside governments. They're too powerful now.
It's the great thing that there are such things as podcasts.
Yes.
Because you can have free broadcast that's your own broadcast.
Yes, you can. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so much information now is coming out through, names that I hear that are sort of, I guess, the celebrities of alternative media, like David Icke and Alex Jones in the US. I don't know, do you follow either of those guys?
Alex Jones, I think he has some good guests on. I find him a little bit of a scaremonger, a little bit. I heard some of the reporting of the immigration problems we got in Europe, and although I think there are some massive issues with the way the immigration is being, with the refugees, the way it's being handled, and I think it's a very difficult situation because there's some people who are in great need, and there's some people who are going to abuse the system. And the way Alex Jones was reporting it was very tabloid. And I wasn't overly impressed. But that said, I think he does do some interesting reporting. I like David Knight, who's one of his reporters, and I think David Icke has been proved to be right on many, many things that everyone laughed at 20 years ago. So I think I think same with everything. You just listen, listen to these people and see how you feel about it, I think.
I want to show you something while we're talking about this. My brother has given me a lot of education on these things. And I have brought a picture because I think my brother looks like he could be your brother.
Yes.
Oh, good Lord.
Doesn't he?
Yes,
Look?
possibly.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yes. Separated at birth.
Yeah.
I
What
think.
does he do?
Well, he's very musically inclined himself.
Okay.
I would say he's a creative person.
Right.
And he's got, like yourselves, a remarkable barometer for truth. He's one who really will stand by what he believes is the truth and take a lot of ridicule for it.
I mean, the 9/11 thing, a bit like JFK, will just run for decades, and we will never know the exact truth. And same with the JFK, we won't, because too many people have been killed in the process. And that's how governments work. I think, keeping us in the dark is ideal. Everyone turning up to watch football and watching reality TV in the evening is exactly how they like us. Distracted and slightly dumbed down. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Which brings us round to music.
Yeah, exactly.
The best distraction of all.
Absolutely.
Some amazing music.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, from our point of view, we as I was saying to Natalie before Richard came in, that we never realised until we did start doing the autobiography. We didn't realise why we played. We've been in bands since we were kids. And it's what we do. We play. We write and we play. And it's only when we started doing the autobiography, we both realised that the reason we write the sort of music we have, or we do, and record that, is it cheers us up.
Yeah.
And it actually, we've both been prone to depression, and we both had those battles going on on and off, and it actually cheers us up. I'm Too Sexy makes me smile.
Yeah.
It just does. Don't Talk, Just Kiss, You're My Mate. These songs and stuff we're doing now, I understand why people think it's ridiculous, which some people do. And I think some of our lyrics push our luck. But it cheers us up.
I relate 1,000% from coming from a comedy background. I wear it like a badge of honour, the depressions that I've been through, and comedy is like an antidote.
Yes, it is, yeah.
As are dogs.
Yeah,
I find dogs are antidotes
they are,
to depression.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
But music, I mean, this is a mind blow for you. In 2012, I had a near-death experience and started to speak scientific information. The biggest message was music is the key and sound is able to heal everything. Right. So I have been researching sound healing ever since, and there's so much science that music actually is healing. And you'll understand the interval of the fifth.
Yes.
Makes your body release nitric oxide, which actually helps your nervous system, your arteries. It breaks down elements in your arteries. Really? They're using
Country
tuning
western,
forks.
that's full fifth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's root and fifth.
So
That makes you feel sick.
I mean, so what you're actually doing when you create music, it is healing people.
Yeah.
On a mass scale,
Yes,
you're
it does,
reaching millions of people with your music.
Well, there's a charity called the Nordorf Robins, and they do therapy with music. particularly for children. And that's a very effective, not just an effective therapy, but an effective charity. We've worked with them on and off for years. From a band's point of view, I think a lot of musicians start off doing it to heal themselves, and then if you're lucky enough to reach out to a bigger audience, you then start to feel that connection.
Yeah.
And then I think certainly since we did the autobiography, we even stopped to think about it. We've never discussed why we play. Never. I've never said, why do you think we do that? We just do.
I don't think many artists do analyse it in that way.
No.
Not really.
It's just what
It's
you're
just what
doing.
it's just what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why sport is so popular, because there was so much dissembling around. Sport is relatively, other than Russian athletics, obviously, which we've heard about recently, but sport for the most part is relatively clear as to what its goals are, and if you're a tennis player, there's a purity to how you win. You just knock the ball over more effectively than your opponent. Golf, you get it in the hole more quickly than your opponent.
100 metres is particularly pure,
and
isn't it?
the 100 metres is really, really clear.
I'm faster than
I
you.
think that's why it's so popular. And I think music. The trouble with music is that there's a lot of bad music around, and the problem with saying the two words "bad music" is it implies that there is such a thing. And I happen to think that there is. I think there is such a thing as bad music. And bad music is just music that people haven't cared about when they made it.
Well, we've done some of that.
And we have done some of it. Yeah. We've knocked tracks together, not really cared enough.
What's a track that you consider?
I wouldn't say. I'd never say it because
it might be somebody's favourite.
Yeah, that's not fair. But we got into a position partly because of our personal lives. Richard was caring for his partner who had cancer, and I had been quite ill and hospitalised for a little bit, and I was sort of recouping. And we were over a few years. Partly because we needed to make some money, and partly because it's just we like playing. But we did a few tracks that just weren't very good, and we didn't really care that much about them. And a couple of them happened to be very successful. One of them we refused to play live because it's just deeply horrible. And we were working with some people we didn't really like, and that they rubbed off on us. Our own personal situation rubbed off on the music, and it wasn't a very happy time. And now we're completely 180 degrees away from that. We're in control of what we do. We think we're making a great album. I think we're making a really, really top draw pop album.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really do.
If it was shit, we'd tell you.
No, we would.
Yeah.
Because we've done it before. We've made shit albums.
Absolutely.
But this is not. This is a.
When artists tell you, they knew they had a hit record on their hands, or they knew this is going to be a great album. I mean, there's an element of, I don't know, whatever it is. It's just self-delusion. I think 9 times out of 10 you don't know. All you can know is if you're enjoying it. And we're enjoying this.
And if it
You know what I mean?
represents you.
And if I think it's us.
This is a good right to for an album.
Yeah, it represents us. We're enjoying it. We think the writing's pretty on the money, and we can only say that because we can compare it with other albums we made where we weren't as fully
Hi, Simon.
as fully engaged. This is Simon.
Simon,
This is Natalie. Simon,
Nice to meet
Natalie.
you, Simon.
Simon's going to be doing some clicking.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and
With a camera.
spend the afternoon with us. And
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Simon does some very fabulous,
Hey, nice to meet you.
most
How are you?
fabulous graphics for us.
Fancy camera.
But yeah, I think the other thing what I think is great about music, which is it always amazes me, is how it's only 12 notes. That's all you've
Right.
got. It's magic. It's a kind of magic.
Yeah, it is.
To quote the famous song. And it is. It just is. And you fashion it out of nothing. You have the same 12 notes and you've got every kind of music. I mean, obviously, until you go out to China or India where they have all sorts of quarter tones and stuff. But in terms of the West, everything from Alexander's Ragtime Band through to Glenn Miller, through to the Rolling Stones, through to punk, blah, blah, it's the same 12 notes. And that is...
Same chords going round and round.
And that's it is a kind of magic.
And that's
Yeah.
and I mean, I personally, that's why my favourite writers are people like Buddy Holly and Bob Dylan, and because when they got it right, the simplicity, and I remember Joan Baez saying when she first heard Bob Dylan singing "Blowing in the Wind," she said that song's never been written. And I sort of agree with her, although you could look back to Woody Guthrie and that his influences, but the purity of that song and the message against the chords, against the rhythm, it's a moment, as was That'll Be the Day.
Movies can be like that.
And movies can be like that.
You can have great moments.
I'm not a very sophisticated music customer. I like it to come from the gut. I like quite ignorant, a lot of really ignorant stuff. I like my dance music to be nursery rhyme. I like my rock and roll to be really ignorant and in your face and talking about all the things you did when you were in your youth. I'm not very challenging like that, and I like that sort of the purity you get with some songs.
So what's your process? Now you're in a zone where you're writing what you feel is really good. What's the process?
We don't really have a process. I think we're quite good at hooks. So it can be like, it could just be a 3-note hook on a guitar. It could be a lyrical hook. It could be anything that just sparks an intention to move forward on an idea. And it can be driven by music and it can be driven by words, or it can sometimes be driven by need. We might sit down and say, we need to have a song like. And so you'll start, 9 times out of 10, it's crap. Because once you start forcing it, it just doesn't have any need. But once in a while, it'll come up. We had a song, it's on the album, and we had the verse for, I don't know how many years. We had the verse for a long, long time. Fred wrote the verse. And I was putting my shoes on at home. And we didn't have a chorus for this bloody song. And I suddenly thought, why don't we just sing this? And it just popped into my head. And it just happened to work with the verse, lyrically and musically, same chords, everything. But that took us, 4 or 5 years, because we had the verse, and then we nothing, and we had to wait for 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, before the chorus came along.
Wow.
But other songs happen real quick.
Yeah, we've got a song. I've had a guitar riff for ages. I didn't know what to do with it, and we've written a song around it called "We Are Believers," and that came together relatively quickly from the moment I recorded the guitar riff, writing the verse and the chorus and the bridge, and it all came together pretty quickly, and the whole thing was pretty much done within a few days. So it depends, and because we've been very lucky with the songs we've written, and they have been kind to us financially, over the years.
Yeah.
We tend to take our time. We don't sit around thinking, we've got to get this album out and we've got to get back on the road. We don't do
Also,
that.
we're really picky. I mean, I'm a member of a company. It's a thing called Flying Vinyl, and you pay £20 a month, and every month they send you 5 singles on wax of bands that you probably haven't heard of.
Wow.
Independent bands, stuff like that. So it's quite a good way of. First of all, I like vinyl. And it's great to hear that vinyl is making a resurgence. And also it introduces me to bands I wouldn't normally listen to. But the thing that I know is if we were involved in the recording process of some of these bands, we wouldn't let it go. Because it's just not melodically good enough. That's we're quite picky like that.
Right.
We're quite demanding. If there's a dead patch, if there's a corny section, or if it... we pick ourselves up the whole time, and that's why I think we work quite slowly, because we've got a song on the computer now, which has got a middle 8 that's missing, and we could easily fashion a middle 8 this afternoon, and it would be okay.
Now, what's a middle 8?
The middle 8 is the bit you have it's
refrain.
It's like a refrain. So you have the verse, the chorus. And the middle 8 is
then
the bit,
different
and the
bit.
different bit.
It's the different bit.
It's the different bit, and they call it middle 8 because it used to be middle 8 bars.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
a lot of songs don't have middle.
A lot of songs, yes, it's quite an old. In a way, it's quite an old-fashioned idea. We still tend to do it.
So you're holding true to this.
We're holding true to the
Yes.
old-fashioned techniques of songwriting.
Right.
But so it's. And we could do it now, but I have a feeling, like I said earlier before you got here, if we just leave it, just imagine we don't have that problem, get on with what we've done, and something will come to us which will eventually be infinitely better than anything we try and rush right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you both have a similar skill set with the writing of the songs, or is one of you the lyric person?
Fred's lyrics.
Okay.
I tend to do most of them, although Richard will come up with lyrics and titles and stuff.
From time to
like
time.
I'm Too Sexy and lots of other stuff. But I tend to do the finishing off of it and the meat and potatoes of it. But we both share the choruses and verses and lyrically and not lyrically, melodically. I tend to play most of the guitars on the album, not all of them, but about 80%. Richard's a good bass player, but lazy.
My dad was a bass player.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I like more than anything, I'm not the best singer in the world, but I absolutely love it. What can I say? I really, really like it.
Have you ever trained with your voice?
Yes, I do, but there are certain singers that I listen to all the time, and so I'm quite narrow in my thinking in terms of music. And I can remember Dusty Springfield, and she was talking about Preacher Man.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah, and she was singing it with I think it was not Aretha Franklin, and Aretha Franklin said, "Why don't you put a rhythmic change in?" And she just sung what's the
Only one who could ever reach me.
what's the song about? Only one who could ever reach me.
That's right.
The only one who could ever reach me. Now that's what Aretha Franklin said. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
And Dusty
Makes it
Springfield said,
gospel.
Why,
Yeah.
why didn't I do that? But
Right.
Dusty Springfield was a white chick from
Right.
God knows where, and she sang it, only one who could
Yeah.
ever reach, like a white person. Whereas Aretha Franklin went, only one who could ever reach, makes it much sweeter.
Did it better.
Yeah, and actually,
she wasn't a
it's
white
probably,
person.
It probably was better. So there is, but I listen to Sinatra all the time, and for me, he is the greatest pop singer of all time, better than Elvis too, I think personally, because he was. Elvis was great. I'm not knocking it. I wouldn't take anything away from him because he was fantastic. But he's I like Sinatra because he's a head singer. He thinks about everything he does, every note, every phrase, everything. I think Elvis was more of a gut singer, more of a visceral singer. So I relate to Sinatra more. But there are lots of people out there who think I'm talking bollocks and think Elvis is the greatest thing. That's a matter of opinion. It's a great thing about art. It's completely subjective.
Right.
It's, some people think the Bay City Rollers are the greatest band ever made. I had a friend who thought the Beatles were shit.
I'm sure there's plenty of people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
think everybody's shit.
Yeah. So you have to get that into your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to decide. Fred does most of the playing, and I love shows because you don't talk about it. You just get out and do it. Studios, I get a little bit tired of the talking about songs. I get a little bit impatient. I just want to finish the.
We have a
bloody
low
thing.
threshold.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky because we're working with Jason and Gordon, and they are very, very good at picking up the slack.
They work when we're drinking wine.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So we'll come in work with the ideas they've already got, or we'll bring new ideas in. And we peak pretty frigging quickly.
Yeah.
Once we've been working for a few hours, we start to,
Yeah. Shiny.
You think,
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah.
We get distracted very, very easily. Yeah. But that said, our work ethic over a period of time is quite good. We do knuckle down. But we do need. We could never produce ourselves. We could never do an album just on our own because it would be a miserable experience and it would sound like.
And it would
shit.
never get finished.
No, we'd never get finished.
It'd be like one of those painters, who lives with the same painting for 30 years because they keep putting a dot there. We wouldn't know when to stop.
What would you say is the percentage of the final song? How much percentage is the producer influenced, would you say?
Varies from song to song.
Yes.
A lot. There's more. Oh, it's hard to say actually. With some of the songs on the album, I would say the producer influence is no more than 20 or 30%. With other songs on the album, I think the producer influence is 60%.
Yeah.
So but it varies from song to song.
It does.
And
it's not a constant.
No, and also it depends on how we feel. Really, if we are, sometimes you have a vision about a song, and you're pretty clear in your own mind how you want it to sound, and if you stick to that and it pans out, then the producer role is relatively small because we brought the song and we brought our attitude to it. We know what we want. Other songs will just come in with just a riff or whatever it is, and we're looking to other people to say, oh, that's great, or that's rubbish, or whatever, to control the process in a way.
Also, we're
So it
very
does depend.
conscious of the fact that because we're the artists, we will live with the song. So, and we've tried to explain, and Jason and Gordon get it, but a lot of producers and a lot of other songwriters don't understand, and certainly record companies don't, that if you're the artist, you'll be on stage when they've forgotten about this song, when they've walked away from this song years ago.
And the act.
You'll be playing some gig, some festival, some shithole somewhere, and you'll be playing the song and you live with it every performance. So we get very touchy when people start saying, if they start to disagree with how we want to do it, because you're not going to be living with it,
Right.
we are.
It's your child.
Yeah,
It's our job.
yeah.
And we have to stand there, and if it's crap,
Right.
it's our fault.
Yes, and so and the other way around, of course. You walk out on stage and you've got some big songs in your set. That's a great thing to have, but you have one too many dead moments. Your big songs won't necessarily pull you through because the audience get audiences get bored.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between being a performer, if you like, and a stock songwriter. Because if you're, as Fred says, if you're a stock songwriter, then you can walk away and you work on another project and you've got another artist coming in. If you're an artist, it's all you have. You standing up on stage, it's all you have. And it's always struck me as odd that managers can manage 20 artists, but artists can only have one manager. I've never quite. I mean, I understand it, but it's always struck me as being an unfair.
Changing a little bit, isn't it? Because now you have a business manager.
You can change, yeah.
You know, you can
advisors and PAs and But there is a kind of with artists. There's like people do forget that when you're standing up on stage, it's just the punters and you, and everybody else that was working on the track. They're back at home watching TV, and you have to stand there and believe
Sing
it.
I'm Too Sexy.
yeah. Which bizarrely is. I've never ever done a show and thought I wish we weren't playing this song.
Oh no, I know.
Because I think it's.
I love that song.
I just think it's great. We've done a few festivals in the last few years which have been associated with the World Cup, and we did played at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, and there's half a million people. You got 500,000.
Wow.
Yeah, 500,000 people.
Flipping heck.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and when they know every single lyric, that's pretty friggin' amazing.
My God, you must feel like God.
Yes, it's quite amazing because you.
Well, close relative.
Yeah, close relative. Yeah, or best mates.
Or best mates.
Yeah, but
My neighbour.
It is quite cool because, and also it's very disappointing when you've got songs that you really believe in that it doesn't connect. That's also good.
That also happens.
But you can remember. I can remember writing the lyrics to "I'm Too Sexy" in my little bedsit, and I can remember. And you think back, that lyric has travelled. All that way, and it's not just us. It happens to many bands. But if it has happened to you, it's quite a special thing.
Well, I remember Mick Jagger talking about when you write a song, you fill a space of nothing.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know, there's a hole in the universe, and you can fill it with a song. Yeah.
What a lovely sentiment.
Yes, it's true.
Suddenly you fill this silence.
Yeah.
With a song, which is pretty cool.
You're professional fillers
Yes,
of the universe.
Yes, we are professional fillers of the universe.
It's quite a responsibility, fellas.
It is.
We've still got a lot of work to do.
We can only apologise.
When that happened in your life, how fast was the shift that you suddenly were rich from being skint to rich? How long did that take?
Rich was slower.
The rich was slow. The fame was instant.
It was not
Really?
quite overnight,
No.
but very quick.
Like a week?
Once we did Top of the Pops, I was still getting welfare because we had no money. Our record company had no money. Well, it wasn't even a record company, but there was no money. So we did Top of the Pops aired on a Thursday night, didn't it?
Yeah. We rehearsed. We went down on a Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and you shot it on a Wednesday or something.
Yeah.
And I used to have to go to the welfare of Social Security and pick up and sign up what in the UK we called signing on. And I did that on the Friday or the Monday morning, but very close to Top of the Pops. And I was doing autographs while I'm getting my welfare check.
Oh my gosh.
It was very bizarre, very odd. And so we became famous very, very quickly, far too quickly. And the money came through about a year later because of the success in America. America takes about over almost a year to get your money out of America because the record companies just want to screw you and sit on your money.
And sit on your money,
Yeah. So although we were making money in the UK, that was good, and Europe, in terms of life-changing, go and buy yourself a house money.
That took a while.
That took a while. That mostly came from the States.
So you were mentally adjusted by the time it showed up?
Yes, we were.
Yeah, you were.
It's still pretty impressive when you get the check. And you think,
Yes, it is.
I've made this from
our
music.
Our first publishing check
Incredible.
was £3,000.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen so much money in my entire life.
That was before the record broke.
That was before the record broke.
What was the next check?
And it was
Quite a lot more.
Quite a lot more, yeah.
Lots of zeros.
Yeah. I think with us we didn't settle very easily in it. I think we like the money, but all the add-ons, the invisible add-ons that come in that you had never imagined.
Like?
Well, like, you know, I've said this before, but I was working in a gym and got back to the gym and the phone rang and my boss picked it up and he said, "Oh, it's for you." And it was the Telegraph or somebody. And they said, "Can you give us your opinion on the release of Terry Waite, who was a hostage in the Middle East?"
Ooh.
And suddenly it's what's that, you know, you have a hit record and so suddenly your opinion about something about which you know nothing
Wow.
Matters.
It matters.
Yeah.
And you do, if you're not very careful, you get a very inflated idea, which is why Elton John's going to Moscow to talk to President Putin about the gay thing. And if I was Putin, and I'll imagine him having a few pints, fucking people for coming over here. Do you know what I mean? Do you think that Putin's just going to use it?
It is, yeah.
He's going to use...
It'll be a photo op.
It'll be a photo op for Putin. That's what it's going to be. That's my guess. Anyway, so you do get a very inflated idea of what you are. And actually, you're a songwriter and you're a performer. And Damon Albarn is right. Show business is not a business for an adult. It just isn't. You have to have a different head on.
I think a lot of the stuff people like, walking into clubs and restaurants and bars and being recognised and coveted, that's the very stuff we didn't like. It's nice ringing up a restaurant and getting a table whenever you want. That's good for your ego. But in terms of, like when we go to the gym, we like to go to the gym and we train. But what happened when the band broke? Girls were flying in from all over the world just to stand outside the gym and watch us train.
Wow.
They would fly in and stand. I'm like, what are you doing?
Good grief.
Yeah, they would. They'd fly in from all over the world and they'd literally just stand in the gym like that.
But that was
and just staring at us.
I think we would.
What the fuck are you
I think
doing?
we'd find it. Although that would still be weird, I think we'd find it easier now. It was just that at the time, it was extremely odd to be followed around. And I remember standing in Robert Dyer's in Putney buying some stuff for the kitchen, and there's a whole bunch of people staring through the glass. And I said to the man, what do they want? He said, I think they're looking at you. I said, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Wow.
And I looked and it's like 50 people. So I had to run through the shop and go out the back door. Yeah. So that aspect of it wasn't very nice. But having said that, I'm quite schizophrenic because I get cross when people don't know who I am, and I get cross when people do. So I'm right on the cusp there.
Yeah.
What can I tell you?
It kind of.
I'm miserable, whatever.
Yeah. I think it's not that we hated it because that's not true.
No.
But we didn't embrace it and we didn't use it and we didn't
know how to.
And we didn't exploit it in the way you see many artists and so-called celebrities do that. And it's partly because it's not important to us. I don't care if I'm famous or not. And what I do care about is, like with this album, I think we've made a really good Right Said Fred album. I think this album will lead to our
Early death.
Yes, our early death. no, but yeah, the
more resurgence.
Yes,
of music?
I was about to use the word fame, but I hate that. But the notoriety, or however you want to call it, it will add fuel to the fire.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think it's a really good album, and I think that's fine because that makes sense. You've made something that people like, so you get used to there's a knock-on effect. What drove me mad, particularly when we were doing world tours, is you'd end up on a TV show, and the only reason they book you is because they saw you on another TV show. They don't actually know what you do. So, and we did Regis and Kathy Lee in America, and they actually asked us, what do you do?
Why are you
Oh
here?
my
And they'd seen us on Arsenio Hall and heard us on Howard Stone.
Wow.
But they didn't know what we did.
No.
You could have had a bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They just didn't know. They had no idea.
No.
I don't want you guys stressed at all for time.
No,
so
we're okay.
how
I think about another 20 minutes.
Yeah,
We're
well,
fine.
That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah.
Okay. So how did you guys not go a terrible road like somebody like Amy Winehouse?
I think Amy Winehouse
I
seemed...
think it was the hairspray.
Yes, it's the
Too much
hairspray.
hairspray.
Having hair.
Yeah, and having hair in the first place.
I think because we're brothers, we've got each other.
Yeah.
She obviously surrounded herself with some deeply negative people who didn't care about her, because I did a lot of drugs, and Richard would come up to me and say, "You're doing too much. You're doing too much."
No,
drugs."
no.
And I would be
No,
chewing
no.
my face off with big panda eyes,
No, I'm not.
and staying up for days on end. And I did have one or two people around me saying, "You've got to sort this shit out." And I think I don't think she could have had that.
But
Because
it's like Gaza, isn't it? It's like, it's like Kiefer, not who's the guy? Leaf's the American actor who died.
Heath
Ledger.
Heath Ledger.
I think that a lot of these people are quite lonely, and I think when all the stars come out crying and it's all terribly sad when they've gone, my instant reaction is where were you when that person needed you? It's all right crying now. That's no good to them. And I think Fred's right. I think a lot of these people, Gaza's a really good example, don't seem to have people in their lives that really care about them. I might be wrong,
There
but
were
that's how
pictures
it
of Amy
seems.
Winehouse freebasing or chasing the dragon, whatever she's doing. Weeks before her death, the writing was on the wall, And you may speak to friends and say, "Oh, but she wouldn't, she just wouldn't listen, and we did this." Well, sometimes you have to take control. People stuck their nose in mine.
Intervention.
Yeah, you do, and I think that a lot of people. She was also, from her record company point of view, she was a money earner.
Of course.
So, and we know from our own experience, if you're earning certain people a lot of money, which we did, they will accommodate any of your proclivities. They just will. So when I was in a lot of coke, they would buy me coke. Well, if we wanted boys or girls, they would get us boys and girls. If we wanted to, do whatever we wanted to do, they would facilitate that because they want you to be happy, or they want
make the money
and make the
Hollywood
money.
Hollywood was doing that with
Marilyn
Judy
Monroe
Garland and Marilyn Monroe
yeah.
and uppers and downers and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sure.
It's been going on for years.
Yeah, I'm sure One Direction have had a miserable time being dragged around the world and told to go and earn money for everyone almost. I hope they've made some money themselves. I think they have. But they would have been way down the food chain. There's people in front of them who made a lot more money.
Yeah, I think I think one of the things that happens is if you come from a fairly stable family background, as we did, and I'm sure maybe the boys in One Direction did, I don't know what their situation is, but let's suppose they did. You're not really prepared for the venal people that you meet in music. You're not ready for it. You think that everybody's your mate. And I can remember walking down doing a red carpet thing, and all the photographers shouting, "Richard, Richard, Richard." And I just thought, oh, they know my name. And they're all mates. Hello! Yeah, I mean, they do that because they know that's how you're going to react. So you just have to, I think if you're lucky enough to have a good sort of a happy-ish childhood and background, you're not prepared for the sheer level of duplicity that you meet.
Malice.
And malice you meet in the record and entertainment business.
It is breathtaking. I mean, I was standing in a bar about 7 or 8 years ago, and I'd been out on a date and it was crap. And it's when my wife and I split up on and off, and this is one of our moments apart. And I went out on this other date, and it was rubbish. So I was standing at this bar, and the guy who used to run our record company and our publisher walked into the bar.
I mean, totally.
And the publisher walked up, but before he'd said hello, how are you, anything, he walked up right in front of me and said, "You'll never have another hit." And I just looked at him and I thought, wow, what a sad man you are.
Why did he say it?
Why?
though?
Well, exactly. And why would you want to say that? What sort of person does that?
Where did it even come from?
Well,
though?
exactly, yeah, because he's angry. He's not a happy man. He's got his own problems. I don't care what they are. I don't know what they are.
One of the things that always makes me wonder is whether there's a deep-seated jealousy of people behind the desk. Because what happens is when there's an award to be picked up, it's the artist that gets and picked. There they go. They stand up on stage. They pick up the award. And it's like the Oscars or whatever.
Right.
It's the artist that does it. The backroom boys are always invisible. The record company, the producer, the manager, they're all invisible. If you're happy with being invisible and you totally believe in what you're doing, you're probably okay with it. But if deep down you're a disappointed performer yourself and you're watching some other guy get all the plaudits, that will tick you off. When you're in your 70s, as somebody we know, and you're a failure in almost everything.
Right.
Maybe that's what's ticking you off, and that's why you get so angry at artists. But I think that's one of the things. We weren't prepared. We weren't prepared for it at all, and we went into everything in the early days liking everybody.
It's also why we acted up, isn't it?
And eventually we acted up because we suddenly realised actually
They were full of shit.
they were all full of shit. Yeah, and being nice doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
What a good job you had each other.
I think
so,
mad
yes.
if you didn't.
Yeah.
That's why Madonna is so amazing.
Yeah, she is, yeah.
I mean, Madonna, whatever you think of her music, I mean, balls of steel, that girl. I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think that being a single girl in the music industry or single girl stand up, for me, that and boxing are the toughest trades because when you stand up, when you do stand up, you've got to make people laugh. If you don't make people laugh, it's pretty fucking obvious it's going wrong. Boxing, you're there to hit someone, or if you don't hit them, they're going to hit you. It's pretty brutal. Do you know, there's not much finesse.
Instant failure.
Yes. Yeah. And why I think it's easier and I think that it's very tough for single girl singers like Kylie and Madonna, because if you're going out on your own just with some backing singers, it's quite rough. If you're in a band, you can hide behind each other a little bit. Yeah, there's a camaraderie. There's you just make as much noise as possible and drown out the booing. So I think from our point of view, we've had each other, and we've also we were lucky with our upbringing. I think we're fairly quite grounded people.
I was going to say, you
know.
seem like you have your heads really screwed on.
Yeah, I
So
think we have now.
I think-
we went through a phase where we didn't.
We were fucked up.
We were a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our accountant was in St John's Wood, and we had a meeting, and we were late, and they phoned, and I said, "Well, I'm just waiting for the limo," and they said, "Well, you just bought yourself a car." So I said, "Yeah." So they said, "Well, why don't you drive yourself?" And I remember thinking, "Drive myself? Are you completely?
Don't you know?
Don't you know who I am? I don't drive myself anywhere. You know, that's how you get. You get insane."
So funny.
And you know, it took us. I think if the second album had gone really well, we would have ended up in rehab or something.
Yes.
I think the second album, I think God's watching. I'd sort of believe the fates are watching sometimes. And the second album stiffed, partly because we wanted it to. I think deep down we wanted it to.
good.
Yeah. Secondly, the writing was nowhere near simple enough. But also, I think it enabled us, in its failure, it enabled us to regroup. And be a little bit more real about who we were. And it's taken a while. I think it's taken about 10 years for us to do that, to get into a more stable place. And also you just, you know, you look around and you just think, we are really, really lucky. We are really lucky.
Yeah.
There are loads of musicians out there, people we know, who can't make a penny. You know, they can't afford a flat, they can't afford to buy anything, they can't, you know, they've left the business because they can't make any money. And any artists, you know, I've got artists that I can't, there are artists out there that I could name that I cannot bear. But anybody, I think, anybody that's making money out of this business these days, you've got to take your hat off to them.
Right.
Because this is a tough
It's the same in comedy as well.
Exactly.
Most
Absolutely.
people work for free.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
the time you put your gas in the car.
Yeah.
Tough gig.
Yeah.
it is,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And entertainment is, the weird thing about entertainment is it's, you know, people will not live without it. And yet persuading people to pay for it is the modern trick.
I mean, with this album, we met up with some record labels and chatted with them, which was a miserable experience, which we expected it to be.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing this through Pledge, pledgemusic.com, which is this sort of online sort of crowdfunding, but also it's almost become like a. It's also
It's a massive A&R department.
yeah, it's almost become like a massive A&R, in as much as that the record companies are now so even lazier than they were, you know, last week, and so they're just watching for everyone else to do the work for them.
Right. This is like YouTube with comedy.
Yes, it
The
is.
TV
Yes,
networks
yes.
now just go to YouTube and see who's
Absolutely.
already viral and sign them.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so we've decided to do this through Pledge because we went and met Pledge. We like the idea of controlling everything. We've just done the album design and we're getting all the artwork together, and it's just really nice to be involved in the project and not sitting around with ridiculous A&R people. We don't need an A&R man to tell us if we've got a hit record or not. We've got a manager with good ears. We've got PR people that we trust. We don't need some fool at a record company to do that. And good A&R are virtually dead anyway. The days of John Hammond and Clive Davis and Muff Winwood, those guys are few and far between. And I think we are savvy enough to know what will work for us, and it's just a nice process. It's unencumbered.
Well, Gordon, who we're working with at the moment, he put it right. He said it's the fight back. That's what it is. For too long, artists have been on the boot end of record labels, and what the crowdfunding enables artists to do is to take control.
Yeah,
and that's a really good thing. I think it's a lot more work. You have to become familiar with areas of promotion and stuff that you didn't really understand before.
Yeah, you have to educate
I mean,
yourself.
like album covers. Well, you know, we're having to design our own album cover and decide on how we want it to look. We've never done that before, ever.
No.
You know, you just send it off to the printer.
This is our best album cover by far.
But this is our best album cover by a mile. You know, I think although you know it comes with its downside, which is obviously the extra work and so, but it does put you, as Fred says, put you in control.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's risk reduction for labels, because they can see think what labels want. They if they were betting people, they would want a surefire cert on every single bet. That's what they would want. They'd want a horse race with just one horse running. That's it.
On steroids.
On steroids.
With all the tickets
With all
already
the
sold to the
exactly.
race.
That's the kind of, and that you know, this is art, and you know the two are always going to be fighting, and you expect that, but what's very difficult to explain to people on the business side is their life would be much simpler if they just found something they believed. Don't
Yes.
try and pre-think radio. Don't try and pre-think the punters. Don't try and pre-think anything. Find an artist, an act, a band, a comedian, whatever it is that you think is good. It's that simple, and then live with it and make it work.
Right.
It really is not. It's that simple, but it's actually it takes balls to do that, and most of them don't have any.
No, there's people I chat with online on Facebook who work in record companies or publishers or whatever, and they really are a spineless bunch. You know, you can see it in reading in between the lines. They rarely talk about finding an artist they believe. They talk about an artist who's got lots of YouTube hits, or they'll talk about an artist who has just got a record on a song on somebody else's record, but they don't really talk about the passion. They don't really talk about the love of it. They just don't. It's all
Statistic.
It is. Yeah,
and
we were
it's-
talking to a record company guy in Germany, and he said, "Yeah, I'm very excited." He said, "It's very good. We found a band. They're sort of like Mumford and Sons, but they sing in German."
What the fuck is that?
What the fuck is that about? We've got Pink Floyd, but they're Chinese.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
what's the point? It's just, it is hopeless. It is absolutely hopeless. The only hope for the music industry is in the artist.
Yeah.
It is in the artist getting up and doing their thing.
And I
that's
think
it,
it's
that's
sort of
it.
splitting a little bit. You've got the manufactured bands. You've always had manufactured bands, but I think it's gone into overdrive now. You've got so many, particularly girl singers. I mean, you can throw a rock out of a window, you'll hit a fucking girl singer with a major record deal.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, and they're given one album, and most of them disappear. One or two of them roll on and do well, but the record company is just very manufactured. They've got the artist, the record company already own the production team, so all those songs are with their publishing company. The whole thing is very controlled and not a very organic process. And I think what's great with the way the industry's gone is that for bands who don't want to work within those guidelines, you now have a real option with crowdfunding, with the internet. You do have options, and whereas that, and you don't need radio like you do.
Also, the other thing that I don't think labels, I don't think they get it, is that punters are much more open than labels ever will be. Punters do not bring to it all the weight of their prejudices and things. They tend not to. They listen in a very innocent way, I think. And with Sexy, I remember that track, the reason it went out on Tug in the end was because no record label in the UK would touch it. It was taken to every label and it was turned down by everybody. And in one particular case, they didn't even listen to it.
Good grief.
In America, we were told this will never be a hit in America because it starts with a vocal.
Oh my goodness.
It starts with I'm doing that whole
Right.
thing. And because DJs want to talk over the beginning. So you can't start a track with a vocal. And I remember, well, first, we didn't change that. And partly because we had no money. We couldn't afford to change it. We just said, that's the record. I can get on with it. But punters didn't, that's not how they thought. They thought, oh, this is fun. This is fun.
Right.
They didn't analyse it. They didn't try and turn it into some kind of philosophical thing.
It was fresh.
It was fresh and they just heard it and liked it. That was it. And record companies need to relearn that, I
Yeah.
think. They need to relearn the simplicity of it all. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to have sophisticated marketing if the track is right. I mean, I was watching Bowie last night on doing Starman. The vocal is a bit patchy. It's not the best song I don't think he's ever done, but you only have to look at it to know there's something special going on.
Right.
There's that. Trevor Boulder with the sideboards down here, and it's just great. When I first saw Roxy, when I was a kid, I saw Roxy and I just thought, this is fantastic. It was not like nothing else. All glitter and it was showbiz,
Right.
And punters, I'm sure Roxy had a lot of trouble in the early days with labels because there'd been nothing else like that. But punters don't think like that. Punters just think, do I like it or don't I? It's really simple.
So how does the pledge work? Like, what do people get when they're pledging on thepledge.com? How does it work?
Well, the idea of a format like Pledge is to bring the artist and their fans closer together. So instead of the artist delivering the product and saying, please buy it, what you engage the fans much earlier on. So, for example, with our Pledge campaign, people will get the option to pledge a certain amount of money for particular things. They can just buy an album, or they can buy a signed album, or they can buy T-shirts and this other stuff signed. They also have the option of doing things like coming down the studio and being on one of the tracks.
Wow.
They also have the option of getting a producer credit, executive producer credit on the album. They can they have the option of getting
Picking a mix.
picking a mix and having a mix named after them. They also have the chance of owning the bass guitar we used in the I'm Too Sexy video,
Whoa.
which is very cool.
Holy smoke.
Yes, and I actually went and dug it up. We were talking about it. We said, we still do have this guitar, don't we? So I actually went down the lockup.
We went there this morning.
Yeah, I went down the lockup this morning and I dug it out and took a photo of it, you know.
My car.
Yeah,
We're giving away my car next year.
yeah, we've got a lovely
It's an 840
840
BMW 840.
Yeah, quite rare.
It's quite rare. I mean, when I years and years ago, before the band broke, I saw somebody driving one of these, and I remember thinking that is one of the best looking cars I have ever seen in my life. And then the band broke, and many years later, I bought one, and it was designed. The BMW headhunted the guy from Porsche, and this is the first car that the guy from Porsche designed for BMW. And it's got the flip-up headlights, which is why it's like the 928. Wow. I'm a petrol head. I love cars. Awesome. And but the reason I don't use it is because Fred comes over with his wife, sometimes with the kid. We have guitars and stuff in the back. And the 840 that we're giving away is a
It's a one-man car.
It's a 2+2.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't get anything in the back. It's impossible. It's not a band type car.
I mean, how much money does someone have to pledge to get a car?
We haven't decided yet. What we're going to do is it's garaged at the moment. So I've got to talk to them about how we work this out with them. And then what we'll do, the person that wins the pledge will come down to the garage, meet us there. We'll have a few photos done with the car, and then they'll drive the car away.
I mean, the thing like the car, particularly exceptional. The idea of the pledge thing is that, for example, it's a bit like if I was, if I'd been, I was a massive T-Rex fan, and let's say this was going on back then, and he was recording the Born to Boogie album, and I heard Lean Woman Blues first. The first run through, and because they put it up online. This is the first 30 seconds. You're immediately hearing this album, you're hearing the album develop, you're hearing ideas and song titles, and it's that's the value. The other things are incentives. It's like the fluff. The real importance is that people will see regular updates, they'll hear stuff being made, they'll see stuff being sung, and it sounds really corny, but they live the album with you.
Yeah.
They go through the
It's
process.
yeah.
Well, what's interesting is it's come full circle, and this is, I think, partly a reaction to social media, because in the old days, particularly in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, Hollywood controlled the photographers, they controlled the stars, they controlled everybody. So you only got access to the stars when the studio said you could, and with approved photographers and everything else. And that's what people bought into. They bought into this mystique. Social media has completely broken that down. And what people want now is they want intimacy with the people they like. So I see Kevin Spacey's tweets. I mean, it's 30, 40, 50 years ago, that would never, it'd never have happened. He would have been locked away in some kind of mansion until he did his movie and come out, do a few shots, then go back.
Right.
So and I think Pledge and organisations like it, companies like it, have just capitalised on that, and fans now want and enjoy. And I think it's good for artists too. I think it's good for artists too.
So it makes you think.
Makes you think about, first, what is something worth? What is a T-shirt actually worth? And what is a signature worth? What is a poster worth? What's the album worth?
Right.
You rather than, and it stops you. It helps to stop you being quite so arrogant.
And it's really, I mean, we're very hands-on with the whole thing, and we're enjoying it. It's a lot of work, and it makes your whole sort of schedule much more intense, but it's fun.
And when do you think it'll be finished?
The album will be ready for release in May next year. The pledge campaign goes live November 30th, around then.
Perfect. I can put a link.
Yes,
to everything.
Exactly.
Yes.
That'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
And we run the campaign for about 4 to 5 months. There'll probably be a single release before the album is available, and hopefully we'll get lots of support.
Brilliant.
Also, it's accredited, so you can have. Which, I mean, it's in the old days, you'd have crowdfunding, which had nothing to do with anything else. It was just a way of facilitating you to get the budget to do what you wanted to do. But now with Pledge, because they're credited in terms of charts, if your album goes top 3, it shows in the chart. I mean, it's you might as well be signed to Warner's or anybody else.
Yeah.
The sales.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it all shows in
the sales are registered.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Hey.
so much. Fred, Richard, you
Pleasure.
guys are awesome.
pleasure.
Thank you just so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. It was a
Pleasure,
pleasure.
Natalie.
Thank you very much.
Some people say love is blind, like star-crossed lovers on a building sign. Whoa, whoa.
Fred and Richard, the backbone of the universe filler known as Right Said Fred. As always, I'll post bonus images and links at thegreyescape.com, including the link to the Pledge Music campaign, which will be live in a few weeks. That link will be pledgemusic.com/Right Said Fred, just in case you can't wait. But it doesn't work yet. Unless you're listening to this in mid-December 2015, in which case it probably does. See, right there is a quantum jump for some of you. The link is not live. And for some of you, it is, depending on where you're at on the space-time continuum. I'm not sure I'm even here, but I am sure that I have another awesome treat for you guys right now. I heard what I'm about to play for you in the recording studio in Clapham, and I spontaneously started to dance. From another work in progress from Right Said Fred's new album, this is called American Girl. It features guest vocalist Marcella Detroit from Shakespeare's Sister and, oh my God, here it is. Please, guys, go to iTunes, review this show, The Grey Escape. I'll know you did it and we'll be quantum entangled forever. Do it, and I'll catch you next time on The Grey Escape. And I'll play this right now, American Girl by Right Said Fred.
Discretion, it has wasted so much time.
See what I mean? I told you. I bet you're dancing.
You should have told me a million miles ago.
I'm an American girl.